All right. Well, I think we are going right into December 3rd, 1881. Okay. Well, that is 1881, which is actually before M came. So this was M's Gospel. At the beginning, at the introduction of M's Gospel, he says there's three types of evidence, and he goes into, direct evidence, and then there's evidence from a person, from all these various types of evidence. And he said, but everything that is included in the Katamrita itself, he said, comes directly from what I've heard and seen myself. So it's firsthand evidence. Now, what we are on now is the appendix, which is what he takes from sources who were with Sri Ramakrishna. He wasn't there personally, but other people were there and took this note. So he was not there. He did not start coming to Sri Ramakrishna until 1882. So when I see Saturday, December 3rd, 1881, I'm thinking that he got that from one of his Brahmo Samaj friends. We shall see.
So what page is that on?
That is on page 1013, 1013.
Oh, there it is. Thank you.
Okay. Saturday, December 3rd, 1881. Okay, here we go. In the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna paid a visit to his household disciple, Manamohan, at 23 Simla Street, Calcutta. It was a small two-story house with a courtyard. The master was seated in the drawing room on the first floor. Ishana Bhawanipur asked him, "Sir, why have you renounced the world?" The scriptures extol the householder's life as the best. I'm really still wondering about this last. Yeah, it is. This is in the appendix. Okay, Master. I don't know much about what is good and what is bad. I do what God makes me do and speak what He makes me speak. Ishan. If everybody renounced the world, they would be acting against God's will. Master. Why should everybody renounce? On the other hand, can it be the will of God that all should revel in lust and greed like dogs and jackals? That's subtle. Yeah. Has He no other wish? Do you know what accords with His will and what is against it? You say that God wants everybody to lead a worldly life. But why don't you see it as God's will when your wife and children die? Why don't you see His will in poverty when you don't have a morsel to eat? Maya will not allow us to know the will of God. On account of God's Maya, the unreal appears as real, and the real as unreal. The world is unreal. This moment it exists, and the next it disappears. But on account of His Maya, it seems to be real. It is only through His Maya that the ego seems to be the doer. Furthermore, on account of this Maya, a man regards his wife and children, his brother and sister, his father and mother, his house, and his property as his very own. There are two aspects of Maya, Vidya and Avidya. Avidya deludes one with worldliness, and Vidya, wisdom, devotion, and the company of holy men, leads one to God. One who has gone beyond Maya, through the grace of God, views alike both Vidya and Avidya. Worldly life is a life of enjoyment. After all, what is there to enjoy in lust and greed? As soon as the sweetmeat has gone down the throat, one doesn't know whether it tasted sweet or sour. It's true, right? You have something here, by the time that you swallow, it's like just have the memory of it. But why should everyone renounce? Is renunciation possible except in the fullness of time? The time for renunciation comes when one reaches the limit of enjoyment. Can anyone force themselves into renunciation? There's a kind of renunciation known as monkey renunciation. Only small-minded people cultivate it. Take the case of a fatherless boy. His poor widowed mother earns her livelihood by spinning. The boy loses his insignificant job and suddenly is seized with a fit of renunciation. He puts on the ochre robe of a monk and goes to Benares. A few days later, he writes home, "I've secured a job for 10 rupees a month." In the meantime, he tries to buy a gold ring and beautiful clothes. How can he stifle his desire for enjoyment? Keshav arrived with some Brahmo devotees and respectfully saluted the master. He took a seat on Sri Ramakrishna's left, Ram on his right. For some time, a reader recited from the Bhagavata and explained the text, master to the devotees. It is very difficult to do one's duty in the world. If you whirl around too fast, you feel giddy and faint, but there is no such fear if you hold on to a post. Do your duty, but do not forget God. You may ask, if worldly life is so difficult, then what is the way? The way is constant practice. At Kamarpukur, I have seen the women of the carpenter families flattening the rice with a husking machine. They are always fearful of the pestles smashing their fingers. And at the same time, they go on nursing the children and bargaining with customers. They say to the customers, "Pay us what you owe us before you leave." An immoral woman goes on performing her household duties all the time her mind dwells on her sweetheart. But no one needs spiritual discipline to acquire such a state of mind. One needs spiritual discipline to acquire such a state of mind. One should pray to God in solitude every now and then. It is possible to perform worldly duties after obtaining love for God. If you try to break a jackfruit, your hands will be smeared with its sticky juice. But that won't happen if beforehand you rub them with oil. The kirtan began. Trilokya was singing. The master danced, Keshab and the other devotees dancing with him. Though it was winter, the master became hot and perspired. After the music, he wanted something to eat. A plate of sweetmeats was sent from the inner apartments. Keshab held the plate before Sri Ramakrishna, and the master ate. When he had finished, Keshab poured water on his hands, and then dried the master's hands and his face with a towel. Afterwards, he began to fan the master. Master, to Keshab and the other devotees. They are heroes indeed who can pray to God in the midst of all their worldly activities. They are like men who strive for God realization while carrying heavy loads on their heads. Such men are real heroes. You may say that it is extremely difficult, but is there anything, however hard, that cannot be achieved through God's grace? His grace makes even the impossible possible. If a lamp is brought into a room that's been dark 1,000 years, does it illumine the room little by little? The room is lighted all at once. These reassuring words gladden the hearts of Keshab and the other householder devotees. Keshab, to Rajendra Mitra, the uncle of Ram and Manmohan. Wouldn't it be nice if you could arrange a festival like this at your house one day? Rajendra, very good, I will. Well, Ram, you'll have to take charge of everything. Sri Ramakrishna was asked to go into the inner apartments where Manmohan's mother had prepared a meal. A glass of ice water, of which he was very fond, was placed near his plate. Keshab and the other devotees sat in the courtyard and were treated to a sumptuous feast. The master joined them and watched them eat. He danced and sang to entertain the guests. When it was time for Sri Ramakrishna to leave for Dakshineshwar, Keshab and the other devotees took the dust of his feet and saw him off in a hired carriage. And that is the end of that day. So we will move on to Saturday, December 10th, 1881. The last one was exactly a week before. So I have, since this is before M met Sri Ramakrishna, I have the feeling that these are, there were several things that appeared later in M's gospel in the appendix. And they were actually published in Brahmo journals, Brahmo magazines. So they were visits to the Brahmos that they'd carefully recorded, and Keshab was very much in favor of spreading the word about Sri Ramakrishna. So in Keshab's magazines, and I think this is where these appeared, and these later were put into the gospel. So Saturday, December 10th, 1881. At Keshab's request, Rajendra Mitra arranged a religious festival at his home in Calcutta and invited Sri Ramakrishna and the devotees, including the members of the Brahmo Samaj. 2 days before, Agoranath, a prominent member of the Brahmo Samaj, had suddenly passed away in Lucknow. Keshab and the other Brahmo devotees were in mourning, and Rajendra thought that they could not possibly join in the festival at his house. This worried him, but Ram, the master's devotee, said to him, "Why are you so sad? If Keshab can't come, let him stay away. Our master will be here. He is always in communion with God. He enables one to see God, and his presence will make the festival a success." Rajendra, accompanied by Ram and a few others, paid Keshab a visit to express their condolence for the death of Gauranath. Keshab said to Rajendra, "Why, I haven't said I shall not join in the festival at your house. Sri Ramakrishna will be there, so how can I stay away? I'm in mourning, it is true, but I shall come." On the wall in Keshab's room hung a picture of Sri Ramakrishna absorbed in samadhi. Rajendra to Keshab, "Many people say that he," pointing to the picture, "is an incarnation of Chaitanya." Keshab, looking at the picture, "One doesn't see such samadhi. Only men like Christ, Muhammad, and Chaitanya experienced it." About 3 o'clock in the afternoon, Sri Ramakrishna arrived at Manmohan's house. He rested there a while and served some refreshments. Surendra took the master in a carriage to the studio of the Bengal photographer. Oh, no, 2 pages at once, I'm sorry. The art of photography was explained to him, and he was shown how glass covered with silver nitrate takes the image. After the master was being photographed, he went into samadhi. It's funny because later on you'll see him using those very metaphors about, it's so fascinating how he'd take in everything and he'd use it later for metaphors about spiritual life. As the master was being photographed, he went into samadhi. A little later, Sri Ramakrishna arrived at Rajendra Mitra's house. Keshab had not yet come, and Mahendra Goswami was reading from the Bhagavata. The master conversed with the devotees. "Master, why shouldn't one be able to lead a spiritual life in the world? But it is extremely difficult. While coming here, I passed over a bridge at Bagbazar. How many chains it is tied with. Nothing will happen if one chain is broken, for there are so many others to keep it in place. Just so, there are so many ties for a worldly person. There is no way for them to get rid of them except through the grace of God. One need not be afraid of the world after one has the vision of God. Both Vidya and Avidya exist in his Maya, but one becomes indifferent to them after realizing God. One understands it rightly after attaining the state of a Paramahamsa. Only a swan can discard the water and drink the milk from a mixture of milk and water. A robin cannot do so." A devotee, "Then what is the way for a householder?" Master, "Faith in the Guru's words. You should depend on his instruction. Do your duties in the world, holding fast to his words like a person whirling round and holding fast to a pillar. One must not look on one's guru as a mere human being. It is Satchidananda himself who appears as the guru. When the disciple has the vision of the Ishta, that's the chosen ideal of God, through the guru's grace, he finds the guru merging into him. What can one not achieve through simple faith? Once there was an Anaprasna ceremony, that's the first rice-eating ceremony for a child, in a guru's house. His disciples volunteered according to their powers to supply the different articles of food. He had one disciple, a very poor widow, who owned a cow. She milked it and brought the guru a jar of milk. He had thought that she would take charge of all the milk and curd for the festival. Angry at her poor offering, he threw the milk away and said to her, "Go and drown yourself." The widow accepted this as his command and went to the river to drown herself. But God was pleased with her guileless faith and appeared before her and said, "Take this pot of curd. You will never be able to empty it. The more curd you pour out, the more that will come out from the pot. This will satisfy your teacher." The guru was speechless with amazement when the pot was given to him. After hearing from the widow the story of the pot, he went to the river, saying to her, "I shall drown myself if you cannot show God to me." God appeared then and there, but the guru could not see him. Addressing God, the widow said, "If my teacher gives up his body because thou dost not reveal thyself to him, then I too shall die." So God appeared to the guru, but only once. Now you see, because of faith in her guru, the disciple herself had the vision of God and also showed him to her teacher. Therefore I say, even though my guru frequents a grog shop, still to me he is the embodiment of eternal bliss. All want to be the guru, but very few indeed want to be a disciple. But you know, the rainwater doesn't collect on a high mound. It collects on low land, in a hollow. One should have faith in the holy name given by the Guru, and with it practice spiritual discipline. It is said that the pearl oyster makes itself ready from the rain that falls from the star Swati in the ascendant. Taking a drop of that rain, it dives to the fathomless depths of the ocean, and remains there until the pearl is formed. At the sight of so many Brahmo devotees assembled there, the master said, "Is the meeting of the Brahmos a real devotional gathering or a mere show? It is very good that the Brahmo Samaj holds regular devotions, but one must dive deep. Mere ceremonial worship or lectures are of no avail. One should pray to God that one's attachments to worldly enjoyment may disappear, that one may have pure love for his lotus feet. The elephant has outer tusks and inner grinders as well. The tusks are mere ornaments, but the elephant chews its food with the grinders. The inner enjoyments of lust and greed injures the growth of one's devotion. What will you achieve through mere public lectures? The vulture undoubtedly soars high, but its eyes are fixed on the charnel pit. The rocket undoubtedly shoots up in the sky, but the next moment it falls to the ground. One who has renounced attachments to worldly enjoyments will remember nothing but God at the hour of death. Otherwise, they will think only of worldly things: wife, children, house, wealth, name, and fame. Though practice a bird, that's what it says. Through practice, a bird can be trained to repeat Radha Krishna, but when a cat catches it, it only squawks. Therefore, one should constantly practice the singing of God's name and glories, and meditation and contemplation as well. And further, one should always pray that one's attachment to the world may disappear and one's love for God's lotus feet may grow. Householders devoted to God live in the world like a maidservant who performs her duties for her master, but always keeps her mind fixed on her own native village. That is to say, they do their duties in the world, keeping their minds on God. Anyone leading a worldly life is sure to come in contact with its dirt. But a householder who is a true devotee of God lives like that mudfish, which, though remaining in the mud, is not stained by it. Brahman and Shakti are identical. One acquires love and devotion quickly by calling on God as mother. Saying this, the master sang, "High in the heaven of the mother's feet, my mind was soaring like a kite, when came a blast of sin's rough wind that drove it swiftly toward the earth. Maya disturbed its even flight by bearing down upon one side, and I could make it rise no more. Entangled in the twisting string of love for children and for wife, alas, my kite was rent in twain. It lost its crest of wisdom soon and downward plunged as I let it go. How could it hope to fly again when all its top was torn away? Though fastened with devotion's cord, it came to grief in playing here. Its 6 opponents, which is the 6 passions, worsted it. Now Naras Chandra rues this game of smiles and tears and thinks it better never to have played at all. He sang again, "O mother, for Yashoda thou wouldst dance when she called thee thy precious blue jewel. Where hast thou hidden thy lovely form, O this terrible Shama? Dance that way for me, O mother. Throw down thy sword and take the flute. Cast off your garland of heads and wear your wildflower garland." As Sri Ramakrishna sang, he left his seat and began to dance. The devotee stood up. Every now and then the master went into samadhi, and the devotees gazed at him intently. Dr. Dukhari touched the master's eyeballs with his finger to test the genuineness of his samadhi. This disgusted the devotees. Yep, sounds right. When the music and dancing were over, the devotees took their seats. Just then Keshava arrived and some of his Brahmo devotees. Rajendra told him about their great joy in the master's kirtan and requested Trilokya to sing again. Keshav replied, since Sri Ramakrishna has taken his seat, the kirtan will sound flat. Triloka and the Brahmo devotees sang, chant, O mind, chant the name of Hari. Sing aloud the name of Hari. Praise Lord Hari's name. And praising Hari's name, O mind, cross the ocean of this world. Hari dwells in earth and water. Hari dwells in fire and air. In sun and moon he dwells. Hari's ever-living presence fills the boundless universe. While preparations were being made to give the guests something to eat, Sri Krishna talked with Keshav, master with a smile. Today I enjoyed very much the machine by which a man's picture is taken. One thing I noticed was that the impression doesn't stay on a bare piece of glass, but it remains when the glass is stained with a black solution. In the same way, mere hearing of spiritual talk doesn't leave any impression. People forget it soon afterwards. But they can retain spiritual instruction if they are stained inside with earnestness and devotion. The master was conducted to the second floor of the house and was asked to sit on a beautiful carpet. The ladies waited on him while he ate his meal. Keshav and the other devotees were also sumptuously fed. And now we go into Sunday, January 1st, 1882. Sri Ramakrishna arrived with his devotees at the house of Gyan Chowdhury in Calcutta to join the annual festival of the Simla Brahmo Samaj. Keshav, Ram, Manmohan, Balaram, Kedar, Narendra, Rakhal, and a few other devotees were present. Narendra had met the master only a few days before at the temple garden at Dakshineshwar. He used to participate now and then in the worship of the Simla Brahmo Samaj and to sing for the congregation. The worship was arranged according to the usual custom of the Samaj. First the scripture was read, then Narendra sang. It was dusk. The devotees made merry. The master looked at the householder devotees seated around him and said with a smile, why shouldn't it be possible for a householder to give his mind to God? But the truth is, he no longer has his mind with him. If he had it, then he could certainly offer it to God. But alas, the mind has been mortgaged. It's been mortgaged to lust and greed. So it is necessary for him to constantly live in the company of holy men. When he gets back his own mind, then he can devote it to spiritual practice. But first it's necessary to live constantly with the Guru, wait on him, and enjoy the company of spiritual people. Either he should think of God in solitude day and night, or he should live with holy men. The mind left to itself gradually dries up. Take a jar of water, for instance. If the water is set aside, the water dries up little by little. But that will not happen if a jar is kept immersed in the Ganges. The iron becomes red in the furnace of a smithy. Take it out, and it becomes black as before. Therefore, the iron must be heated in the furnace every now and then. Do you know what ignorance means? It is the feeling, this is my house, these are my relatives, I am the doer, and the household affairs go on smoothly because I manage them. Yes, but to feel, I am the servant of God, his devotee, his son, that is a good attitude. This I cannot be effaced altogether. You might explain it away through reasoning, but the next moment it reappears. Nobody knows from where. It's like a goat that still bleats faintly and jerks its legs even after his head has been cut off. But the I that God retains in his devotees after he has seen him is called the ripe eye. It is like the sword that's been turned to gold by touching the philosopher's stone. You cannot hurt anybody with it. Thus the master talked, seated in the worship hall, and Keshav and the other devotees listened with rapt attention. It was about 8 o'clock in the evening. The bell rang 3 times for worship. Master to Keshav and the others, what's this? I see you haven't begun your regular worship. Keshav, what further worship do we need? We're having all this. Master, oh no, dear sir. Let the worship be performed according to your custom. According to your custom. Keshav, why? We're getting on very well. At the master's repeated request, Keshav began the worship. In the midst of it, Sri Ramakrishna suddenly stood up and went into samadhi. The Brahmo devotees sang, chant, O mind, the name of Hari. Sing aloud the name of Hari. Praise Lord Hari's name. And praising Hari's name, O mind, cross the ocean of this world. The master stood still, stood there absorbed in samadhi, in ecstasy. Keshav led him down very carefully from the temple to the courtyard. The music went on. The master danced to the music, and the devotees danced around him. After the refreshment, Sri Ramakrishna again talked with Keshav. Soon he began to sing. Keshav sang with the master. The black bee of my mind is drawn in sheer delight to the blue lotus flower of Mother Shama's feet, the blue flower of the feet of Kali Shiva's consort, tasteless to the bee, are the blossoms of desire. My mother's feet are black, and black too is the bee. Black is made one with black. This much of the mystery my mortal eyes behold, then hastily retreat, but Kamalakanta's hopes are answered in the end. He swims in the sea of bliss, unmoved by joy or pain. Again they sang, high in the heaven of mother's feet, my mind was soaring like a kite when came a blast of sin's rough wind that drove it swiftly toward the earth. Both Keshav and the master were in a state of divine fervor. The other devotees joined them and sang and danced till midnight. The master rested a few minutes and then said to Keshav, why did you send me presents when your son was married? What shall I do with them? Take them back. Keshav smiled a little, and the master continued, why do you write about me in your paper? You cannot make a man great by writing about him in books and magazines. If God makes a man great, then everybody knows about him, and even though he lives in the forest. When the flowers bloom in the deep woods, the bees find them, but the flies do not. What can man do? Don't look up to him. Man is but a worm. The tongue that praises you today will abuse you tomorrow. I don't want name and fame. May I always remember the humblest of the humble and the lowliest of the lowly. And that is the end of Appendix A. So no doubt next week we will go into Appendix B. Any questions or comments on that? Anybody?
Thank you so much, Prajapana.
Nice to hear your voice. Nice to see you again,
It was
Des.
beautiful.
Nice to see everybody here. Okay, watch out for the cold and the rain. Okay, tomorrow, Krishna Prana is lecturing on faith is life, doubt is death. And then on Wednesday, we'll have a 5 p.m. reading for Seekers of God. And there will be a Bhagavad Gita class on Saturday, this coming Saturday, with Swami Sarvadevananda. And the following Sunday, Swami Sarvadevananda, which is early this month, will be speaking on Ramakrishna, the embodiment of Shiva. Okay, well, nice to see you all, both in person and here. I can see you here.
Yes, it's great.
All right, stay well, everybody. I hope you had a good Shiva Ratri Thakur's puja.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, see you later. Bye, Jama.
Jai Ma.
Bye, Ma.